Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
Beware the battle cattle, but do not fear the battle cattle.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly, and today we're taking probably our last dip into the Fallout RPG for a little bit. We want to talk a little bit about the way that enemies work in the Fallout RPG and how to adapt some of the monsters that appeared in older games that didn't get ported into the Fallout RPG, because it is very much a Fallout 4 centric sort of game, and so the monsters that appear in the book tend to be the monsters that are in Fallout 4.
That makes sense.
So you're not going to see some of the monsters that were in Fallout 1, 2, New Vegas, the West Coast ones that a lot of Fallout fans really like, or in the case of the Cazador, really hate.
That's fair. But, there are some new additions as well, so, it is a good smattering, I think, and for a first entry, for a first edition book, I think they have done fairly well.
Yeah, I would agree, because you do have to have a certain tightness of scope whenever you are including it all in a single volume.
Yes.
When you're not splitting it apart into 3 books the way that Dungeons & Dragons does, where they have just an entire 300-page book full of monsters. You do have to be selective, and you do have to be careful on how you're formatting everything in order to fit a decent number of creatures into your book.
Yes, absolutely.
So, we're going to talk a little bit about the way that they structure enemies in the game, and how to modify the monsters in the book, and how to adapt to create your own monsters. I think that they actually set up a pretty decent system to make it fairly easy to create your own monsters or to modify existing monsters for your purposes.
It's decent. It's a little bit much at first glance, and I think when you sit down and get familiar with it, it won't be quite as bad. But when I first saw, I love tables, and I went, and there was like 6 different tables and different things. I'm looking at this, and I'm like turning it sideways. But once you sit down and get used to it, like anything, it does become fairly intuitive.
The only real table that you get for the actual creatures section is the experience point table, which I don't know why they decided to go with base 7 for each level up. I'm sure that a lot of playtesting went into it, and 7 points per level happened to be the sweet spot for gaining experience points. But, God, it's weird.
It is odd. And again, there are some things I was changed. When I was thinking tables, like just going from the book, looking at like one of the first entries of the blood bug, which is a ginormous mosquito critter, but you have a body stat, a mind stat, its melee attack, and other. Its HP, its initiative, its defense, its physical damage resistance, its energy damage resistance, radiation damage resistance, poison damage resistance, and its attacks. And every creature has those stats. And then you have special abilities and any inventory it may or may not have. At first glance, like I said, it did seem kind of chunky. I think the more you work with it, it will become more intuitive. It's not overwhelming, but that first glance is a little, makes you kind of like, ooh, Yeah,
well, if you go and you read this is all coming from chapter 10 of the book.
Yes.
And if you go and you read the 8 or 9 pages that precede all of the creatures that you run into, a lot of the stat block overwhelming jumbleness suddenly makes a huge amount of sense.
Yes.
See, you mentioned, that they have a body stat and a mind stat. I like that because this is for anything that is not sentient. Anything that is a creature and not a character has just body and mind. Body is the number that you use for anything that they do that is physical. Mind is the thing that you use for anything that they do that is mental.
That does break down easier, yes.
Yeah, and so now you just have to keep in mind 2 numbers.
Not like a wisdom and a charisma and an intelligence and a, yeah.
So with the melee guns the next one, the melee is their bonus to melee attacks. Their guns is their bonus to ranged attacks. If they don't have a value in guns, they cannot make ranged attacks. And other is their bonus to anything else that they do.
Okay, yeah. It does break down, and again, it would probably take about 10-15 minutes of sitting and rolling some stuff, but I think once you get past the initial shock, I think it is fairly intuitive.
I think the big chunk of this for me is I haven't played or run a game yet, and so some of the jargon is something that I would have to get used to. I don't think that the layout of the information has any issues for me.
Yeah.
But it's things like dealing with your target numbers, how that works. That's like your to-hit rolls, I guess. It's whenever you're rolling your d20s, you have to hit that number or under in order to generate a success.
Right. And then, again, as we mentioned before, this is a 2d20 system, so it is not like a D&D d20 system, so you are rolling multiple d20s for number of successes, and I believe the maximum number is 5 or 6.
I think 5 is the biggest pool that you can get.
Okay, yeah.
Because you can spend action points to buy up to 3 additional dice.
That sounds correct, yes.
Because that would require A, a full action point pool, and B, using every point in it.
and pissing off the party if you don't somehow refill the action point pool.
Well, I mean, as long as the action that you are taking is something that is valuable to use those action points on.
Right.
You know, if it is something like, you know, we have to kill this thing right now. Because if it gets one more attack, somebody is going to die.
No, I'm using all 5 action points to pick that flower right over there. That's my flower. But again, that is game mechanics, and we discussed that a couple episodes back. If you're curious about how that's all going to work, definitely go back and check out that episode, and we deal with the mechanics of Fallout a lot more in depth. In this, we are going to focus on the NPCs and the critters you're going to meet in the Wasteland. And I think starting around a good level 1 for, you know, everyone either stumbling out of the vault and or their settlement, I think one of the first things you are going to meet, especially within the games, is either going to be rats or some sort of insect.
Rad roaches.
Rad roaches, yep. Rad roaches, the bot flies, absolutely.
Bloat flies.
Boat flies, yes. Bloat flies, not bot flies.
Bot flies are a real life thing.
Yes.
I know that you like to conflate the two, however, comma.
But yeah, these are going to probably be the first things your characters are going to encounter. So let's break these down for a little bit.
All right, so, you know, bloat flies, according to the book, are level 2 creatures. So they are relatively low level, 6 hit points, 2 defense. They can fly. They have a little size tag, so, you know, they have fewer hit points than a creature of their level should have. And if they take any damage that has an injury attached to it, they just automatically die.
That makes them fairly easy for the most part. Again, your characters are going to be lower level. They're not going to be as efficient with attacking and hitting things, especially if they are all brand new to the game. And again, throwing a small swarm of 3 or 4 bloat flies at a party, I don't think is a terrible introduction to kind of break the ice and get the dice rolling initially. They are going to be small, they are going to squish easy. Now, going through the book, unfortunately, talking about the critters that did not make it into the book, the rat, which is a RPG staple, somehow did not make it.
Yeah, but it's not really a Fallout staple.
And
maybe in the early games, but like
Yes.
in the later games, you had the mole rats, but you didn't have rats.
Yeah,
really.
Now you do have mole rats in 1 and 2 both as well, but yeah, no, the rat, like just the plain rat, was 25 experience points. It made this wonderful little squeak when you squished them, and they would plague you from level 1 to, you know, you could be level 20, level 25, whatever the max level is. I think right now, nearing the end, I think I'm level 10 or 11, and sometimes in the Wasteland, I encounter, you know, a pack of like 6 rats, and you got to go through and stomp them all to get out of the random encounter screen. But making the wonderful introduction in Fallout 3, we do have the Rad Roach.
Yeah, the Rad Roach is the one that if you have been playing since it ported into the FPS sort of era, that you would be familiar with. The Rad Roach is that level 1. It is the rat of Fallout.
Yes.
They are... what's the word I'm looking for?
ubiquitous.
They are a bit ubiquitous. They are almost iconic, I would say.
Yeah, they have become iconic.
They are the iconic creature for a starting player in a Fallout game.
Yeah.
At least the second generation Fallout games.
Absolutely. I mean, even in something like Fallout Shelter, which strangely is a very good mobile game, a radroach infestation is one of the first things you're going to have to deal with. Again, from learning, your intro tutorial to Fallout 3, they're everywhere. They are a good, first enemy. They don't do a lot of damage, but they do enough. They're kind of hard to hit. Again, they have become iconic to the series, which is nice.
Yeah. And one of the things that I like about the stat blocks for this game is that all of these creatures have an inventory, which tells how much usable resources they can get off of the corpse when they're done.
Yeah,
specifically butchery, how much meat they can harvest from the corpse of one of these things when they're done.
Yeah, that has a very much a second edition D&D feel to it, and I do appreciate that very much.
Yeah, and it's something that, really fits the theme of the game. It makes it feel like a Fallout game, because if you don't have a pocket full of raw radroach meat as a second level character, are you really playing Fallout?
Exactly. And again, this is another solid way to introduce your character. So for your first party, I mean, if your players are in the vault, then maybe there is a supply room that is dealing with a radroach infestation. If they're starting from a settlement, maybe there's a radroach infestation at the local gas station or granary or what have you. And so you have your players making a short jaunt across the wasteland where they are going to come across some bloat flies and then into a room filled with radroaches. And again, low level enough to be challenging, but not overwhelming. And so a good kind of start to get into that combat. It's not and you come across a super mutant.
So we did talk a little bit about, modifying these monsters a bit. They do give a few guidelines because, you can just upgrade them by giving them additional levels, and they give directions on how to level up your creatures and your NPC characters. You also have the ability to just straight up increase their difficulty level. So there are mighty creatures or notable characters. These are monsters or enemies. They have higher stats. They have better loot. They're worth more experience points as a result. And so this is how you would modify a monster if you wanted to have a mole rat queen and a colony of mole rats. So you would make that mole rat queen a mighty mole rat, and you would increase its stats, and it would be worth double experience points.
And I do enjoy that too. It does kind of remind me of the elite or the epic characters in WoW. They'd have the special outline and they'd drop extra loot. This also kind of reminds me of the episode of The Simpsons where Homer's trying to catch that, I forget, was it General Sherman catfish? But the catfish had a name, it was a local legend. And so you could have a mole rat that is just particularly feisty, and it could be a mole rat queen. And again, for whatever reason, she has become a local legend. And so you're looking for the specific mole rat queen, and perhaps she has some sort of physical identifier, so when you have met said mole rat queen for your encounter, and you have to bring back, try to capture her alive perhaps for a pet, maybe bring back her head, whatever that is. But again, you can build these kind of local urban legends around these creatures, which would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the mechanical changes that you make to make a creature into a mighty creature is really simple. So for a mighty creature, you can add +2 to either their body or their mind stat, and then you double their hit points.
Simple.
That's it.
Yeah, that makes it really nice and easy.
And then if you want to make them a legendary monster, which a legendary creature is worth triple experience points, you would have a +2 to both mind and body, and you triple their total hit points. And then you're done.
Now I want to go to Wendy's and get a Dave's Triple, because that just sounds yummy.
You do that.
Okay. But yeah, so again, something like these insects, these mole rats, these are going to be your first real encounters as you level up. Now, going through in Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, you came across rad scorpions really early. Within the book, they're level 7. So, I mean, they are definitely stouter within the book. And I think something you'd probably come across more likely as you hit like level 2 and 3 would be something like a pack of wild dogs, or even some NPC like human critters, either raiders or traders or bandits of some sort.
Yeah, they've even got Mirelurks in here as a level 7. I don't know that I would quite classify Mirelurks as a level 7. I think Mirelurks should be closer to like a level 4.
Depending on how thick that chitin is.
No, just the basic bog standard Mirelurk.
Yeah.
Because there are different gradations of Mirelurk in the games. And so I would say personally that the baseline Mirelurk should be a little bit weaker than it is in the book.
They do have the hatchlings at level 1, but again, that is a hatchling.
Yeah, but, those are the things that, if you step too close to the nest, they hatch out and they swarm you. That's,
yeah.
It's nothing really.
Again, I think what it comes down to, that body stack comes up to a 7. The mind is a 5, but again, I think relying really hard on that chitinous plating where it's just going to be hard to penetrate, so it's going to be hard to do any real damage to it. And even I recall playing Fallout 3, unless you could get a good shot into the face, you were wailing on those things for a while, and they could wreck a low-level player pretty easy.
Yeah, I suppose.
But yeah, I mean, Mirelurks, and again, I think with that, if you find the characters too difficult, but you want to get them on the table earlier, much like you can make a legendary or a mighty creature, I think if you took a -1 penalty to a body or mind stat, might be a fair adjustment down. You could adjust the XP as you see fit, but I think that would be a fair adjustment down if you want to get something on the table a little sooner than necessarily the level requirement would show.
Yeah, I might also reduce the hit points a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe take a quarter off, so take them down to 75%.
Yeah, probably. For this one, that would be drop that Mirelurk down from 7 body, 5 mind, 14 hit points down to 6 body, 4 mind, 11 hit points.
Yeah.
And then drop its melee from 4 to 3 and its other from 3 to 2.
Yeah, I think that would be fair, and that's something that you can adjust. And as a DM, that's one of those things that you're going to have to kind of evaluate and read how your party does. And if your party's crushing stuff too easy, you can always, adjust some HP on the fly or add in some backup for the NPCs. Or if it's too much, then again, cowardice is always an option, having things flee or have some other form of Deus Ex Machina to help save the party.
Yeah, action economy is a thing.
Absolutely.
And you can always level a playing field by throwing more bodies at the problem.
Quantity has a quality all of its own.
Yeah. So yeah, there are a few iconic creatures in the Fallout games. One of them that I was really looking forward to finding is the Deathclaw.
Yes.
The Deathclaw is that iconic high-level monster. It is the thing that in Fallout 3 would absolutely wreck your day if you came
Fallout
across
1 too. Yes, Fallout 1 and 2 both, prepare to save scrub a lot.
Yeah. In Fallout 4, a little bit less so. The fact that they have a scripted event where you literally put on a suit of power armor and rip a minigun off of a crashed vertibird to jump down and shoot up a Deathclaw there at the very beginning of the game. It takes some of the mystique away from the Deathclaw as this honed killing machine.
Yeah. So in Fallout 1, you don't meet the Deathclaws until you get to basically the Boneyard, which is one of the last settlements you find. It's like the third, maybe fourth to the last, depending on the style you play. So you are fairly far into the game at this point, and you get on the map, and on the map where the Deathclaws are, there are only ever 2 at any given point. And you have to get past the Deathclaws to get to the Gunrunners to buy all of the good toys. The problem being is that you kill the Deathclaws, you go clear that map, as soon as you go back, 2 more have come back. And that is the Gunrunners' problems, is as stout and sturdy as these Deathclaws are, even when you kill them, they keep coming back, and so you have to figure out how to prevent that from happening. And I will stop there for those who have not encountered the game on, yes, it's a 25, 30-year-old game, but I'll still avoid spoilers for now.
All right. So one of the things that they do differentiate between in the book here is between creatures and characters. Basically, characters cover any NPC who could be a PC if it was just picked up and played by a person.
Okay.
So this is anything that is going to be human, anything ghoul, anything synth, certain robots, like any of the Mr. Handy chassis robots, the super mutants, all of those are classified as characters instead of creatures. And all of them have special stats as opposed to just the body and mind stats. The breakdown that they have for whether a character is a normal character, a notable character, which is the mighty equivalent, or a major character, which is the legendary equivalent, is how many special points they start off with. So a normal character has 35 plus half their level, so base average 5 in everything, plus half their level. Okay. A notable character has 42 plus half their level, so that's a baseline 6 in everything, plus half their level. And then a major character has a baseline 49 plus half their level, so a baseline of 7 in everything, plus half their level.
Yeah, good luck fighting that one.
Additionally, normal characters don't have luck points. Notable characters have half their luck value worth of luck points, and major characters have full luck value worth of luck points.
Nice.
And then on top of all of that, normal characters have 2 tag skills, notable characters have 3 tag skills, and major characters have 4 tag skills, each of those tag skills with 2 points. And then the last change that you modify is for their hit points. Notable characters get additional hit points equal to their luck attribute. Major characters get additional HP equal to double their luck attribute.
Okay. And that's a good distinction, too, because, I mean, if you have an NPC, that is one thing I really do enjoy about the Fallout series and the way the tabletop game is looking, is that it is relying more on interaction and less, combat. So murder hoboing would be punished a bit more severely. And so depending on who these characters are, I think they'll be able to hold their own versus, say, like a D&D character by itself. So again, Fallout does seem to lean more heavily into more of the social interactions than just strictly combat.
And so that's giving a whole list of, these are the changes that you make to power up a creature. So if you have, say, if you're going in and fighting a bunch of raiders and you don't want to use the, I think, level 10 raider boss for your party of 3rd level player characters, you can just go ahead and modify the base raider, make it a notable raider, and it gives you exactly what steps you have to take in order to make that happen.
Yeah, I like that as a mechanic. And again, too, if you're going to have a 3rd or 4th level party, a raider, you're probably going to have 2 or 3 of, like, your minimal raiders that are just going to be broken down, and then a notable character. But I could see you using, like, a creature stat block for 3 or 4 of those raiders just to make them easy to produce. And then, like I said, the one raider that may or may not have a name that may become a returning character within the game, or, other ways for MacGuffins or other story hooks.
And I'm going to apologize at this point. If you hear weird popping noises in the background, is because my neighbor is shooting off fireworks.
Huzzah!
They also have rules in here for followers and companions, so, the way that you mechanically make allied NPCs work with your character in the action economy of the game. So allied NPCs don't use their own initiative score. They use the initiative score of the character who is controlling them, and they either act immediately before or immediately after that character in initiative.
Yeah, and that is another good advent for this, is how initiative does work with this. It helps keep things a bit clearer.
They can automatically perform minor actions that they have to do in order to keep up with the player character that is controlling them. And in order for them to take a major action, the character controlling them has to use their major action to command them to do it.
Okay, so that does sound kind of like the Ranger mechanic within D&D 5th edition too. So I can kind of see that, and so controlling or commanding a person, I can see where that takes an action. Not a huge fan, but it does keep things a little bit more organized.
Well, and it also helps balance everything out, because you, as a player character, can spend action points to get an additional major action.
Right.
So you can use your major action to command your companion, and then you have to spend action points if you want to also do a major action.
And this prevents, someone from basically having, like, a dozen little mini robots that they're going to, charge the Wasteland in, and then one person spends the next 30 minutes at the table on their turn and bores everyone else to death.
Right. It simplifies everything. It helps keep encounters a bit more balanced.
And the game streamlined, which can be good, because sometimes waiting for everyone to take their turn and figuring out what they do can be a drag on the game sometimes.
So let's think of a couple of monsters that aren't in this book, but exist in canon in the Fallout universe.
So one of the first ones I looked for was the Nightkin.
Yeah, the Nightkin are a variant of the super mutant.
Yes, and they have either a stealth boy or a natural camouflage, depending on how you want to present that. But yeah, they're basically a super mutant ninja, for the lack of a better term.
Yeah, rather than being green-skinned, they're usually somewhere in the blue to purple range. And their continued use of stealth boys to go invisible has made them absolutely nutters.
Yeah, I love them. They're so much fun.
They're great. But again, because this is focusing on the East Coast Fallouts, and the Nightkin are decidedly a West Coast Fallout thing, that's why they're not in here.
Right. And so for these, I would say that they're very obviously going to have a high body stat. But I think because
they're going to be characters. They're going to...
Oh, yeah, okay. Just full characters. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to start off using the super mutant stat block.
Okay.
And then you're going to just modify that as is necessary.
Sounds great.
So just the baseline super mutant is a level 5. And then you have the super mutant brute, which is a level 7, and the master, which is a level 10. So probably I would start off with the brute as the baseline. And then I'd probably swap out small guns and big guns, because they have a 2 in big guns and a 4 in small guns. And every time that I have ever encountered the Nightkin in the games, it's always been either a super sledge or a minigun or a rocket launcher.
Yeah, that sounds about correct.
I mean, they don't tend to use the hunting rifles and stuff that the standard super mutants use.
Well, too, with the Nightkin, they're supposed to be more stealth, and so they're not going to use, quote-quote, small arms. I mean, they'll use a rocket launcher, because if nobody survives, there's no witnesses. If I was equipping one, I would either give it, like I said, some sort of, like, big melee stick to smash like a super sledge, or even the flamer. The flamethrower would be a good fit for them.
Yeah, I could see the flamer working for them. But in all of those cases, I think we are very much set on it is a big guns and not small guns focus.
Absolutely.
Because the first time that I ever encountered the Nightkin was in Fallout New Vegas, when you get to Novak, and there's the rancher whose Brahmin are dying, and you have to camp out in his pasture until like midnight, and then a Nightkin shows up in stealth with a minigun and just lights up a Brahmin.
Yeah, that's a great little bit.
So that is my defining Nightkin experience.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good one that was done very well. The Nightkin are in Fallout 1. They're just stealth super mutants, really, in Fallout 1. They're not as special, but, I mean, for me, they really did kind of pop it in New Vegas.
So yeah, that's what I would do. Another low-level monster that is a West Coast monster that I would like to... or West Coast creature. I need to start using the proper terminology here. The West Coast creature that I would like to see are the geckos.
Yes, I love the geckos.
Because geckos are another one of those low-level creatures that you come into contact with very early on in New Vegas. I mean, you kill off geckos in the tutorial.
Yeah. And in Fallout 2, as soon as you leave your settlement, geckos are among the first things. I mean, rats, you have a hand-to-hand combat trial, I think the next really thing you encounter are silver geckos and golden geckos.
At least in New Vegas, golden geckos are something that are added later on, I think. No, I'm thinking the fire geckos. Golden geckos are the early on ones, just the basic brown ones.
Yeah.
And then, the fire geckos are something that happen later on because, they have mutated to breathe fire and they're a pain to try and kill.
That sounds about correct. And in Fallout 2, again, they get like an extra armor penetration or attack on their bite. And so they were very quick to like disable an arm or a leg, and they wrecked early players so bad.
Yeah. And then in the files for Fallout New Vegas, but not actually implemented, there is a giant, I forget what I think it's Gojira maybe? Gojira. It's a 50-foot tall giant gecko that has the most hit points of any creature in the files.
Is that a Godzilla reference?
It is.
Okay.
It is absolutely a Godzilla reference. But it has the highest hit points and I think the highest damage resistance of any monster in the game. And it is not actually accessible in the game. You have to use console commands if you want to see it.
See, now I'm curious. I'm going to have to find like a YouTube of someone summoning this thing and seeing how it does.
I've seen a couple of videos of people talking about, the strongest monsters in the Fallout games and somebody, summoning one of these and it just eating a mini nuke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and not really phasing it a whole lot. Like taking down 3 or 4 ticks of its health bar.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so anyway, getting back on topic, the geckos are, again, a very early monster, a very early creature that you would run into. Honestly,
I'd probably put them level 3 or 4.
Personally, I would just re-skin the mole rat.
Yeah.
Because they do have a lot of the same things. They don't burrow. So you would get rid of the burrow ability and maybe like give them like a point of energy resistance as a payoff for that.
I'd give them that, or like I said, even possibly if you gave them some armor penetration.
I wouldn't want to give them armor penetration as an early monster.
Okay.
Maybe a more advanced version if you're going for like the fire geckos. Because a fire gecko, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if they are literally expelling fire from their mouth, just the ambient heat of that would cause you to sizzle whenever it bites you.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, no, I think, just switching up a little bit with the mole rat would be a decent fit.
Yeah, because they've got a bite, they've got keen senses, they're immune to radiation.
They should, so the geckos, again, going back into Fallout 2, you found them next to a bunch of like, basically it was kind of like the ooze from Ninja Turtles, so it was like any kind of radioactive sludge, and they would drink it and they walked through it, and you got poisoned if you walked through it. So with that, I would give them like an immunity or resistance to poison.
Yeah, I could easily see, replacing the burrow ability with just poison immunity.
Yeah, and I think that would be a strong fit.
Yeah, let's see here. What are some of the other ones? Well, there's one from the Fallout show.
Oh, the finger axolotl thing?
The gulper.
Is that what they called it?
Yes.
Okay. I just know the mouth was full of fingers.
Yes, the mouth is full of hands. That is correct.
And it was an axolotl, and I loved that was a great creature, yes.
Yeah. And, it's called a gulper because it will literally just swallow you whole.
Yeah.
So, just thinking thematically, I would probably start off with, say, the Mirelurk Hunter as a baseline for that, just because it does have that Apex Predator vibe going on.
Absolutely.
Because it is that big, it can just swallow whatever it wants. And so, Mirelurk Hunter starts off with a level 12, so I think that's one level higher than the Deathclaw.
Yeah.
And I think that the Gulper, as portrayed in the show, probably could eat a Deathclaw.
Ooh, yeah. Oh,
it would be rough going down.
I don't know if the Deathclaw would be feisty enough to claw its way out, is the question.
I think all of the fight would be on the Gulper trying to get it in.
Fair.
And if the Gulper managed to get it head first, I don't think it would be that big of a fight. But if it managed to get it feet first, it would get shredded.
Oh, yeah. I want to see this now. I really want to see this now. Like some sort of like Wild Earth Wasteland.
Yeah. So it's already got immune to radiation. It's got aquatic, so it can submerge itself in water indefinitely without needing to come up for air. It doesn't suffer penalty to its attacks or movement for being in water. And it has a small weak point. So with the Mirelurk Hunter, like all Mirelurks, its face is its weak point. Its face is that area where the chitin isn't quite as thick as everywhere else. And I think that would also be the case for the Gulper. I think that its weak spot is inside of its mouth.
Yeah, I could see that.
Just going off of the depiction that we had in the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be more or less what was going on with that.
I think the other critter that I would have liked to have seen in the book that wasn't there, and they've been in Fallout 1, 2, and 3. I don't recall seeing them in 4 or New Vegas, but the centaurs.
Yeah, they were in New Vegas.
Were they? I don't recall them in New Vegas, but...
There's a crater behind where the Brotherhood of Steel bunker is, over near where the Black Mountain radio tower is.
Okay.
It's one of the craters that you have to go to collect the holotapes for the Brotherhood if you're going to do them as a faction in the game. And there are centaurs in that crater.
Gotcha. And so the centaurs, the story or the lore behind them was pre-war when they were adapting and experimenting with the forced evolutionary virus. One of the scientists had gone kind of crazy and realized that if he dipped 2 critters into the forced evolutionary virus, they would bind within the vats. And he was experimenting to see what he could actually create by mixing different things together. And so the centaurs are this weird amalgamation. They look like just a mishmash of human parts, but they were used as guard/attack dogs by the super mutants, at least within Fallout 1.
In Fallout 3, too.
Okay. So with holding to that, I would say I would go with the mutant hound from the book, and then they have the... I can never say this right, but the Yao Guai, basically the radiated bear. I would take those 2 and average them out, which would put us at about a level 8 or 9, which is about where your super mutants are going to be as well.
So the mid-tier super mutants in the book are level 7.
Okay.
And the masters are level 10.
And I would imagine not every super mutant has its own centaur, so I mean that would probably be a...
Right, yeah.
A status effect, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, status symbol, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can easily see that being the case. I would probably try and adjust it to be more along the level 5 to level 6. One of the things that I would want to make sure to add, and it's something that has been removed from a few of the different creatures in the book, and I'll touch on that here in a second, is it needs to retain its projectile attack.
Absolutely. And I think
because that's what made them terrifying.
Yes. And with that, I think the bloatfly still has its projectile attack.
No, it doesn't.
No, it does not. Oh,
it is a melee. The bloatfly's shooting its larva at you is not a ranged attack in the tabletop game. It is a melee attack.
Melee. I just saw that. You're correct.
The blood bug spitting its bile at you in the video games does not translate into the TTRPG.
That is unfortunate.
It only has a melee attack. Honestly, I don't see a reason why, and this could be something when you're upgrading it to a mighty or a legendary creature, I don't see why a Deathclaw can't have a ranged attack, because they will, on occasion, do that thing where they rake the ground and throw a big old bunch of, rocks and gravel at you. I don't see a reason why they can't just pick up and huck a rock at you.
I would put that under their other. But yeah, no, that's absolutely definitely an option. Throw skills are definitely a thing.
Right, yeah. And it's specifically because they mention, thrown weapons as falling under the guns stat on these creatures, because they are just, melee guns other.
Right. I could see getting a gun stat for either your projectile or your thrown then. That would fit very well. And I think that was an oversight by, was it Modiphius?
Yeah.
I said it right. Yay!
And now, one of the things, and I already mentioned them once, the Cazadors.
Yeah.
I think what I would do with the Cazadors is I would take the Stingwing and I would just level it up to like a level 12 or 13.
My speakers go to 11.
Yeah, because they are just that pernicious and that virulent.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I encountered Cazadors in Fallout New Vegas, and I thought that I was going to have an easy time of it because I had all of these big guns and I was, breezing through all of the other enemies that I came across. And one loading screen later, I realized my problems. It's like, oh, there are orange wings over that way. We're not going that way anymore.
Nope.
But, honestly, I think that they have all of the things necessary to do a Cazador. They just need to be scaled up level-wise to accurately reflect how dangerous Cazadors are.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I think, I don't know, the Fallout RPG book's been out for a little while. I would love to see them do basically like a Wasteland monster manual, for lack of a better term on that one. That would be a lot of fun, and there's a lot of other creatures that they could add and further adjust I would love to see. Even if they went through and built up like some of the Raider factions a bit better, I think would be a lot of fun just to see, okay, here's this group. They have left a lot to the DM and the players, which is wonderful for imagination, but really I'm just greedy for more content.
Now, what is that one really weird one from Fallout 1? It's bipedal, it's got a great big mouth and like a round body.
From Fallout 1?
It might be in Fallout 2.
I'm not recalling.
It's from one of the early games, and it has not made an appearance in one of the FPS Fallouts.
It may have been just part of a random or a limited encounter, but I don't recall bipedal with a round body. Now, I do know Fallout 2 had Dingo. That's what they called it. It wasn't that.
That might be what I'm thinking of.
Okay. And it was a kind of a map or dungeon boss. It definitely was not, but it was like haunting some mines, basically. And you hit that around level 5 or 6, if I recall.
Okay. But yeah, so that's pretty much what we were going to be talking about today. And, just giving a brief overview of the monster system, how they are constructed, how they actually have very good guidelines within the book on how to modify any of the creatures or characters that you want to implement, that you want to use in your game. And, if just very cursory looking through and reading through, you can start modifying creatures fairly quickly and easily if you have experience running any other tabletop game and you have an idea of relative power levels.
Yeah. And even if you don't, again, with the instructions they give you, it's not hard to figure out and adapt to.
Right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas, please send us an email under commontaste@gmail.com or come and talk to us over on our Discord. You can find a link to our Discord and all of our social media and our Patreon and our itch store all through our website under commontaste.com.
Woohoo!
I still need to actually get in there and start adding content to that website. But it is now live. It is now a one-stop shop for all of our links. So
awesome. If this is your first time listening, we're so glad you found us. You can find our content on your podcaster of choice. As always, please give us a rate and review. This helps increase our visibility and lets us know what kind of content you enjoy hearing about.
Stay safe, everyone, and we'll see you all again in 2 weeks.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Under Common Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Ann, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.